Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I know it is late in the United States, so I appreciate y'all being here with me. It's actually around my bedtime right now. So I'm excited to be here with you. I had 2 coffees this morning. If you feel comfortable, I would love if you put your camera on so I wasn't just looking at myself while I was talking. But if you are in your pajamas or you're eating or you just don't want to put your camera on, totally fine. I get it. I am, business on top, pajamas on the bottom. So it is okay if you are too. So I'm going to be going through Blue Sky Partners Comprehensive Calendar Workshop in a super light version. So it's typically a 4-hour workshop that we do with individuals, but I've kind of condensed it down to a 1-hour workshop, and we're just going to see how this goes. We've never done this before. I've never done this before with multiple people in 1 hour. So we're kind of just going to roll with it and we'll see how this goes. I'm already going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you anything mind-blowing in the next hour. So I apologize. These are simple things that we're going to go over. But they're things that a lot of folks forget. We get caught up in the day-to-day and the busyness of it all, and our calendar just kind of runs the show. So what we're going to attempt to do today is to give you an ideal calendar, to give you something better that actually works for you. So, this is an entrepreneurship summit. We're talking to folks that are entrepreneurs. And as you get more successful, the demands on your time are going to increase. And you may then feel less in control of your time. So people are scheduling on your calendar without asking you, or you're saying yes to a ton of different things. The more you get clear on how, what, and when you work, the more productive we can become. And the more goals we can accomplish, the more successful we can be. And so there are a lot of common mistakes that get made by businesses and leaders when it comes to scheduling. So not having a clear purpose, focusing on the wrong work at a bad time, being unrealistic about time, inappropriate level of detail, not adding buffers or breaks. That's a huge one. I'm guilty of it as well. I try. Building your schedule in isolation, not stacking meetings, being too rigid with your calendar, not updating your schedule, and not using the right tools. So what I want you all to take away from that is that issues with time management are universal, but they are a solvable problem. You are not alone in doing this. We wouldn't have created this workshop if there wasn't a need for it, and there totally is. So the goal is we are going to review your existing strategy for managing your calendar. What are you currently doing? We're going to review your goals, talk about your personal values, identify what is required to accomplish those goals, rebuild your calendar, and give you some tips for honoring this updated calendar. So I know that sounds like a lot. We are going to kind of go rapid fire. But what I would highly encourage you to do is, if you don't have a notebook near you right now, I would run to go grab one. Take notes throughout all this, ask questions. I'll kind of be monitoring the chat, ask questions. And then when you have more time, I would highly, highly encourage you to take a couple hours and really work through these exercises. I'm giving you a bunch of tools you need, and hopefully you can then go and do this yourself. So part 1, we're kind of going to do an initial calendar audit. We'll have a little discussion if folks are comfortable about sharing. I want this to be as interactive as possible. So I will ask you to share if you're comfortable, but of course you don't have to. We'll talk about obligations, so the things that you've got to do. We'll talk about goals, values, upcoming projects. We will go over a short little exercise that you can do. We'll build your ideal calendar, and we'll just talk about some strategies. So just a nice little quote here. It's not enough to be busy. The question is, what are we busy about? So a lot of times what happens is we end up just being busy. And it's almost worn like a badge of honor in today's day and age. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. and that it is okay to not be hustling every single minute of every single day, and that actually decreases your productivity. Rest is necessary for you to be as productive as you can and be as successful as you can and reach your goals. Kelly, thank you for joining in for just a little bit. Hopefully you can watch the recording. I will see you soon. Okay, so we're going to have this kind of progress bar here to check in on how we're doing as we go throughout this process. I'll be looking at my watch and just kind of keeping a watch on time because I know there's sessions coming after me for our Australian friends and those around the world. So part one is an initial calendar audit and discussion. So if you are comfortable right now, I would love for you all to kind of pull your calendar up, take a look at what the last maybe couple of weeks have looked like. Sophia and Aaron, I'm assuming yours is going to be pretty nuts the last few weeks, getting ready for the summit. But if you notice any themes, I'd love for you to kind of feel free to unmute, or actually it looks like I have to ask you to unmute. So if you just want to raise your hand, I'll unmute you. And just if you notice any themes within your calendar, or you're just looking at it and you're like, there's no rhyme or reason to anything, would love for you to just take a look and then share and see if you can identify maybe what's going wrong, or if you're doing something that's working for you. We definitely want to take note of that as well.
So I'm looking at my calendar, and I guess I'll start with a positive. I noticed that I do most of my meetings with people on one day, which is cool.
Good.
I do like that.
Yeah.
But then on a negative, what I'm noticing is that because I don't just look at my calendar, I look at the organizational calendar, that I'm looking at a lot of different colors. And on a week like the past few weeks, it's incredibly distressing.
Yeah, and it's tough too, because you want to know what's going on an organizational level. That's important. And for some people, color coding is like the dream. I love color coding. So I like color code the hell out of my calendar, and that helps me. But for other people, seeing all of that is like, oh my God, there is too much going on. And so the first step is just realizing there's a problem, right? And so kind of acknowledging what maybe is not working in your calendar is going to be step one. And I know, like I said, we're going to move quickly through this because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's obligations. But the next thing I want to do is think about obligations, and I want you to write this stuff down. So what are the things that absolutely have to happen on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, a quarterly basis? And this could be things like going to the gym. This could be family dinner on Sundays. This could be date nights every month. This could be, quarterly board meeting that you're a part of. So I've got 8:46 on my watch right now. So maybe let's take 2 minutes and just kind of rapid fire. What are those things that have got to happen on either a daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly cadence? All right, Erin's got her list, their list. Sophia's got a list. Okay. So these obligations are going to kind of become the backbone when we build our ideal calendar. These are the things that have to happen. And to keep that list next to you, and it's time to go to the next kind of like the bigger part of this, which is talking about goals, values, upcoming projects, but also habits. So one of the things that I've noticed about myself as I work is that from like 2:30 to 4 is what I call just a dead hour. Like my brain doesn't work. And it's when I either take a nap, or I go and I read a book, or I do some kind of mindless task, because like nothing super productive is happening. But then once 4 o'clock hits, it's a second wind and I'm like ready to go. And so knowing that about myself, I do my best to not schedule things around 3 o'clock that require heavy brain power. Sometimes it's not, in my control, but when I can, I try to block that time off. So what I want you to think about right now are, what are some of those habits you have, or some of those things that you notice that do you work best with people? Do you work best by yourself? Do you like working at a coffee shop, at home? Noticing those habits. And then I also want you to identify some values. And so the values are something that we use to filter decisions through. So when we make a decision, we have to think about, does this go with my values? And if it's something that doesn't, then we kind of feel a bit of a cognitive dissonance, right? We feel like, oh, something about this doesn't feel good, but I don't quite know what it is. And so I want you to identify maybe 3 to 5 of your top values. And then I also want you to go over maybe 3 goals you have for the coming year. And these could be personal goals, or they could be professional goals. You can do either, you can do a mix, you can do either or. But come up with some goals and think about what has to happen for those goals to become a reality. So we'll take a few more minutes for this. And then I would love if anyone wanted to share some of their insights, whether it was their habits, their values, and or their goals when they were ready for that. And to kind of give you an example, we're talking about values. One of my values is health and wellness. And so when I'm making decisions about things that are going on my calendar, if there is, for example, some like open bar party that starts at 9:30 on a Tuesday night, that just doesn't align with my values. And so I'm probably not going to go. And there are other folks that really value like being with people and like being a people person, being a connector. And so for them, that might be a thing like, oh, there's going to be 100 people there, I have to go. And so that's an example of kind of how values help us make decisions. Does anyone want to share any of their goals for the coming year that they're trying to work on?
I can share. One of my goals is to just leave the house more, because I've been so conditioned in the pandemic to stay here, and I work 100% remote. So that's kind of two-sided of like see people more often and also get out and exercise and just be outside. So that is my upcoming goal.
That's a great goal. Erin, do you have anything you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think my goal for the next year is to optimize my mornings. I know that I work well in the mornings, but I'm not a morning person. So I just need to, sometimes I schedule my meetings for the morning, so I know I have to get up an hour before that and get ready. So I would like to design my life around optimizing my mornings. So it's a long-term goal.
I love that. Yeah, mornings are tough. It's funny. I've noticed I like secretly love working when it's still dark outside in the mornings. Like I don't get up at 5 a.m. just to work. Like if I get up early, it's because I'm about to go for a run. Like I work normal hours, but there's something about working when it's still dark outside and like the rest of the world is sleeping, and I'm just so productive. So I absolutely love that. Erin, I am a New Yorker. Do I sound like it? I am. I was born and raised in New York. Oh God, I forgot to put an introduction in here. Oh my gosh. Well, yes. Oh, I'll do that now, I guess. My name is Shayna. I work for a consulting firm called Blue Sky Partners. I was born and raised in New York, and I have been in Texas now for about 7 years, which feels kind of crazy. But yes, the coffee comment, working in dark. Yeah, I love it. So now that we've kind of got some goals, values, and habits, what I want you to make note of for something that you can do a little bit later is really thinking about breaking down those goals and like, how can we make that happen? What has to happen for Sophia to go out more, to get outside, to work from a place that's not her home? What has to happen for Erin to be feeling good in the morning, get the work done that is going to be most productive anyway? Because you kind of want to break things down and then you build different tasks or projects into your calendar. So for example, we actually just did a workshop with someone who also worked really well in the morning. And so what we did with him is we actually put a time block on his calendar from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. that was heads down work time. And what that's done for him is now he leaves the office closer to 3:30 and he doesn't feel guilty about it because it's on his calendar as work time. Whereas before he would do work in the morning, but it wasn't on the calendar. So it kind of felt like it was just like, oh, I'm just doing this. Like I still have to work my full, 8-hour day. So what I want to do next is show y'all an exercise that we use for how to put things on the calendar. And this is called moving to the next tier. And so essentially what we have is we have all of these ideas, we have meetings, we have projects, we have goals. And in order to actually get to a point where we can plan them, we need to go through a couple of filters first. So the first filter is, does this align with what you believe? Is this aligned with your values? Another way to look at that question is, for example, someone might say, oh, I really value family time. And then they end up putting a ton of stuff on their calendar that gives them 0 family time. And then we can say, well, does this align with your values? It doesn't. And so we have to kind of make some change. So if it passes through that, then is this something you actually should be doing? Look at the meetings that are on your calendar. Is there anything that, given your role and your responsibilities, you actually don't need to be a part of, or at least don't need to be leading? And then if something passes through that, what do you actually have time for? So how many hours a week do we realistically want to work? And if you actually do have time for it, then we go to making a plan, we put it on the calendar. So this is something that I would really encourage y'all to spend some time doing. If you've got a whiteboard in your apartment, if you've got just some big paper, or if you've got a blank wall behind you, grab some sticky notes and just kind of make these columns in the wall, on the paper, on the whiteboard, and put all of the meetings on your calendar, all of the obligations, all of your ideas in this first column right over here. And then one by one, what you're going to do is move things through these columns and get to, does this actually become part of my schedule? So pull something from the ideas here. Does this align with your values? Does this go ahead with your role? Do you have the capacity to actually accomplish this? And then make it part of the plan. Are there any questions first about this exercise or kind of how to do this? Okay, awesome.
Can you give an example, I'm sorry, about maybe how the filter would go?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say I was the CEO of a company and I had a family and I'm CEO of a big company. And so one of the meetings on my calendar is like the marketing meeting or something, a monthly marketing meeting. And one of my values is like, growing the business or something like that. So I'm saying, okay, does marketing grow the business? Yes, it does. So that passes through. Is this aligned with my role? Now, here's where we might get to the tricky point. Does the CEO of a large company need to be in the monthly marketing meeting? So we might say no. And we might then find a way, okay, how do I offboard myself from this meeting? Or we say, you know what, I think it is important for the CEO to be in this meeting. So we look at capacity and we say, okay, but do I have time to be part of this meeting? Maybe I'm the one leading the meeting. So we say, okay, it's important for you to be there, but you don't have the time to lead it. So off board the agenda items, someone else does that, and you just attend the meeting. And then you don't have follow-ups. And so then you move it and you make it part of the plan. A similar thing might be, you know, take a look at like Sophia's goal for like going outside more, going and working at coffee shops. That's an idea she's got. One of her values is, you know, being outside, meeting new people. So totally aligns with values. Doesn't align with her role. So is she able to work flexibly? Can she go out to a coffee shop to work? If yes, then we're going to keep moving it forward. Does she have the time to go and do that? And if the answer is maybe, then you kind of go back to the values and say, this is really important, so I'm going to make the time for it. And then you make that part of the plan. Is that helpful? Okay, perfect. All right, I want to make sure I have time for questions and stuff. So I am moving kind of quick, but we may just finish up early. I hope that would be okay too. So now what I want though, is I want y'all to take a little bit of time, and whether you use Outlook or Google Calendar, or I don't know if anyone still uses iCal, but whatever calendar you use, I want you to make a new calendar kind of overlay and just name it Ideal Calendar. And then start putting in those obligations, the things you have to do, family dinners, date nights, working out, getting to bed at a reasonable hour, whatever it may be. Start putting those in that calendar. And then take a look and see, okay, I know I work best in the morning, so I'm going to put a heads down time block in the morning. Or I know that I do much better at meetings with other people in the afternoon. So put a time block there for meetings. And then what you're going to want to do is over the next couple of weeks, try and move things into this ideal calendar. Can you reschedule any of these meetings so that they fall in your ideal meeting time? Can you reschedule heads down work that you do so that it happens in the morning when you're feeling fresh? Can you build in buffer time for you to drive to a coffee shop and sit outside and work? Put that 10, 15 minutes of drive time in the calendar, because if it's in there, you're going to not schedule over it, hopefully. And you know that you have that. And so you don't have to feel stressed of like, oh, it's going to take me time to like drive to the coffee shop and then I have to drive to the next place. Put the drive time right in the calendar. And so I want to give y'all some time. It'll be weird for me because I'll just be sitting here like Jeopardy music. But I want to give y'all at least like 5 minutes to just start building the bones of what that calendar is going to look like. So that way you can continue to work on it, hopefully after this session. And I, of course, will make myself available for more one-on-one time because I know that's probably really helpful, because everyone has their own work styles, their own way of doing things, individual questions. So I will stop talking now. I'll give y'all like 5 minutes and then we'll come back together. All right. So I want to jump back in. But what I want to leave you with as far as ideal calendar building goes is I really want you to try your hardest to stick to it. It's going to feel kind of weird at first. It's probably going to be, there are some new things in there that you're trying, but if you just kind of throw your hands up and say, whatever, like I'm just going to let everything happen, then you're in no better of a place than you were when we started. And so take a couple of weeks. Of course, you can't just go rescheduling every meeting you're a part of. There are other people involved. You have to talk to them. But what you want to do is approach conversations with, hey, I want to be my most productive. I want to bring my best self to work. And I know that I do better when I have meetings at XYZ time. Would you be okay rescheduling that? Seeing if it works for them. Talk to the other people on your team about when you want to be totally not available. If you put a heads down work block in the morning, maybe you don't schedule meetings in the mornings. Maybe you don't do anything like that. You say, hey, I'm not available until 10 a.m. because I get my best work done from like 7 to 9:30. And so take a couple weeks to try and slowly transition things over to the ideal calendar. And then hopefully you'll be operating fully from there. So I want to wrap up with kind of some productivity strategies, but really what I think is most important is you can Google productivity hacks all day long, and you can find 1,000,001 blog posts and YouTube videos and TikToks and Instagram posts about how you can be more productive, how you can manage your calendar. But what I've found the most important thing is to understand how boundaries work and to set boundaries and to stick with your boundaries. And of course, we don't live in a perfect world. We don't live in an ideal world. Things will pop up. There will be fires. You'll have to rush and do something. You might not always get the time you want. But if you can really identify what works for you and how you work and set yourself up in such a way that you get to work like that the majority of the time, you're going to be productive and you're going to be happier. And a big part of doing that is identifying boundaries and saying, I don't check my email after 7 p.m. or I don't check my email except for these 3 times during the day and I don't get distracted by it. There's all those other productivity methods. There's a Pomodoro method, working in time blocks, all of that. I think all of it really comes down to boundaries and understanding yourself and how you work best and really kind of sticking up for yourself. This is a women's entrepreneurship summit. And so I'll say specifically for women, we need to be sticking up for ourselves more and really being more comfortable asking for what we need and saying what we need. And that happens in the workplace as well, is saying, this is my best, most productive time. We can't always get that, but getting more comfortable speaking up and asking for the things we need is going to be really important. So we are a little bit ahead of schedule, but that's okay. Are there any questions before I kind of give my last little spiel? Questions or comments, anything?
A question I have is, with this boundaries asking, that's something I'm really trying to work on. How do you ask the question, am I really needed in this meeting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so there are a couple ways to do that. And I think they depend on, one, your personality, two, your company culture. My way of doing that at Blue Sky Partners would be to literally say, hey, do y'all actually need me for this? Or can I do something else at this time? However, other ways to say it are something I literally just saw a TikTok about this. I'm not on TikTok. I refuse to be on it, but I see them all on Instagram. And it was something along the lines of, hi, I'm a little unclear about what my role is in this meeting. Could you let me know what you need me for? Or something like that. Or you can say, I'm a little unsure of, looking at the agenda of this meeting, I'm not sure how much value I'm going to be adding here. Is this something you need me for? Something along those lines. Awesome. Any other questions about calendars or boundaries or scheduling things?
I have a question. You said that we can Google productivity strategies. What is your favorite resource in order to find those strategies?
Honestly, it's really just a lot of trial and error. So Google, productivity strategies, open up the first 10 links on the page, read through all of them, throw out the stuff that sounds like garbage to you or that you hate, keep the things that sound interesting to you, try it out for 2 weeks and see what works. Because, everybody is well-meaning, right? When we put out these blog posts about productivity strategies, but we're all speaking from our own experiences. And what works for me is not going to work for you. It's not going to work for Sophia. It's not going to work for Louise. It may not work for Stephanie. And so it's really just a matter of finding the things that are interesting to you, that you're like, ooh, this might work for me, or this seems kind of cool. I might want to try this. Or even you can go the opposite way. And if you have a really strong reaction to something of like, oh, this is stupid, maybe try it and just see what happens. But it's really a lot about trial and error. Like I've been working full time for nearly 10 years now. And I still sometimes am like, when do I work best? I don't know. And I definitely need to put some things into practice. But one of the things I think I've gotten really good at is boundaries, at least as far as start times. Like I pretty much will not do a meeting before 10 a.m. Unless it's absolutely required, like from a client perspective, they have to meet then, because I usually run in the mornings and that's an obligation for me. That's a non-negotiable. So I have to have time to do my run, come home, shower, eat. And so I don't want to be like, usually I'll work while I'm eating, but I don't want to have to be on a meeting at 9 a.m. when I've like just jumped out of the shower. And so it's really a lot of just trial and error, figuring out what works for you. And that's where the values come in too, is kind of like, again, health and wellness is a value for me. It's really, really important to my mental and my physical health that I run. And so that's just a non-negotiable. And so if you identify, you know what, family time, it's like family is a huge value of mine. And I refuse to miss dinner with my family every single night. I won't do calls after 5 p.m. But yeah, back to original questions, just a lot of trial and error. See what's out there, try some things that work for you, see what works, throw out what doesn't, ask people you admire what they do, people you look up to, see how they run their calendar, how they run their day. Wonderful. So the last thing I have for you is just thank you for your time. Thank you for hanging out with me for a little while, for listening to me feel like I'm talking to myself. Like I said, this is kind of a quick and dirty of a 4-hour workshop we usually do. I've never done it before, so I would love any feedback on how I can make it more accessible, how I can make it more effective, more valuable. I've got all my contact information here. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter, email me at any point. Next steps, like I said, are maybe spending a little more time with these exercises that we went through today. Set yourself, block some time out on a calendar when you know you have brain power for, an hour or two, and really think about these things. Think about how you're going to reach your goals, how to fit those little tasks into your calendar, how you work best, where, when, all of that stuff, and really build what feels like the perfect calendar for you, and then just try and make it happen. I am available if anyone wants to have like a one-on-one session for another, 30 minutes to an hour and just kind of go over specifically your own goals, your own calendar, your specific questions. Feel free to reach out. Otherwise, that's all I've got, unless there are any other feedback or comments. We are a little bit ahead of time, so that'll give people a little water, food, bathroom break before the next session. But yeah, that's all I've got. Thanks so much, y'all.